When it comes to parenting teens, you might find that you have a lot of questions. My name is Emily Sellis, and I'm the host for the Sage Holistic Show. And today we are delighted to hear from Talia Bombola, who's going to get into the specifics of how you can help your family dynamics and help your teen.
Sage is a 501c3 nonprofit organization building community by providing education and counseling about physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. We encourage all of our listeners to find their own path to what holistic wellness means to you.
My name is Talia Bombola. I am also known as the Confidence and Assertiveness Specialist and Newport Beach's #1 teen expert, which I love working with teens and their families. Most therapists, I think it's an acquired taste, so to speak, because of all the dynamic shifts that occur. And the way that I usually approach the family system is from a collaborative conscious parenting approach. And I often tell parents that the way that they were parented is a thing of the past. And even if they liked certain parts of how they were parented, it's not something we can necessarily repeat because technology exists and social media exists. So the world that they grew up in doesn't exist anymore. And so it's a little bit of a grief and loss period for them as they're trying to navigate parenting. And there's not one book on parenting, there's 100. So when I work with families, I tell them, please just let me filter the information for you. I provide that to you, whatever book I feel like would be a good fit as an adjunct to the coaching services that they receive. So with that said, when I do work with teens and families, the first session that I work with them, they're all together. So it's usually whoever the client is, the teenager coming in, and both parents if they can be there. If not, we have whoever the primary parent is if I'm working with a co-parenting family. And I like to say that even if we're still married to our partners, we're still co-parenting in some sense because we all grew up with different parenting styles, and not every couple talks about those before they decide to partner or have children, which is always a pleasant surprise for me. And being able to explain to the families, this is normal. This is normal to not be on the same page at times, and that doesn't mean you can't get on the same page. So the first thing that I do when I work with families, when we're in our first session, when I'm talking to them, I go over the different parenting styles, which we may be familiar with, but I'll review just in case. And then I talk about the psychosocial stage that they're at in terms of development, so they can better understand where their teenager's coming from. So the parenting styles that I reference, as we're probably familiar with, the permissive parenting style, the you can do whatever you want. It's like the mean girls. I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. So the teen is really in charge of what's happening. The parents are really supportive and warm, but they don't have very pushed expectations of their child. The authoritarian parent is the because I said so, my way or the highway. They don't have a lot of support or warmth, but they have very high expectations of their child. And then the authoritative, which is kind of our middle ground parenting style, what we strive for, at least what I strive for in my practice with my clients and families, is the more collaborative, conscious parenting approach. Let's talk about it. This is what's going on. This is why this consequence or this situation is happening. Do you have any questions? It's more collaborative, so your child learns they're an adult in training. And it's important for them to realize that they're an adult in training because parents, we all do this, but parents especially have this expectation when they're raising their child from a young age. Children up until the preteen years are very reliant on their parents. They do ask questions, they're inquisitive, but they'll generally do what their parents ask them to do. And around age 8 to 9, when that critical mind develops and we start getting the pushback, and that's happening even younger from what I'm seeing in my practice, what we would standardly think of happening around 13 to 14 is now coming up around 9, 10, or 11 years old, those preteen attitudes and mood swings. And so a lot of parents are feeling like, am I the only one going through this? My child's developing sooner. They're not like their peers. And I tell them, you're not alone in that. It's something that's so important for them to feel like they're not failing as a parent. I think that's one of the deepest fears as a parent is that you're messing up your kids irreparably and that they're going to have to be in therapy for the rest of their lives, which is not true. So the parenting style that we strive for the most, that normalizes that and is collaborative, is that authoritative parenting. They have high expectations or expectations of their children, but they're also very warm and loving with their children. So I set that as a foundation when we first worked together. And I also explained to them, if we remember from way back in grad school, Erickson's psychosocial stages of development, I explained to them what's going on for their child in this developmental stage, because some families really miss having that quality time with their kids, and they're all about their friends. They're all on their phone. They're this. There's over 140 social media apps. So if you're expecting your child to put down their phone and be rewarded by just sitting and looking at you as a parent, it's not going to work. I'm not even that interesting, and they love working with me, but the phone is their lifeline. The phone is the relationship they have with their phone, and what it connects them to is something most parents just don't grasp. And it's not about not having the skills to grasp it. They just didn't grow up in that generation. So their psychosocial development stage they're mastering when their teenage years are happening is they're going through this identity versus a role crisis. So they're trying to figure out who they are. That's why we see them kind of try on different either clothes, friend groups, whatever the case may be that they're attempting to fit in. And they're trying to figure out, okay, who am I and who am I in relation to other people? And their goal after this stage is to figure out who they are, feel confident, and be clear on how they want to present themselves to the world. I'm sure we can all remember teenagers can be somewhat of a bumpy road trying to figure that out, as every other peer is trying to figure it out as well. And their most important event during this stage is their social relationships. So if we think of it in that context, that they are going to want to be more social, it's important for parents to be somewhat involved. Who are you hanging out with? Who are your friends? What are your favorite things to do? The approach of learning about this is usually where parents come in and like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, it sounds like you're grilling them like a police detective. So maybe we take a warmer approach and make it more conversational. And we're so used to asking kids questions growing up. How was your day? What was this? What was that? They get questions all day at school. If your kid's quiet and doesn't want to talk about that, or your teen's like, oh, I don't know, it's often because we're asking too many questions, and we want to take the approach, instead of opening a discussion up, we can ask a question, but it's more of like, I want to learn about your friendship with so-and-so. Can you tell me more? It's inviting them in to have a more collaborative approach so they feel validated. And validation is the number one key that I teach when I do my parent and teen dynamic coaching, that your child needs to feel validated by you. Otherwise, they're going to seek it elsewhere, and that's going to cause a whole other set of behavioral issues, more than what they already might be coming in with. So validation with your teen, even though you don't always love what they do, you'll always love them as a person. And that's important for your teens to feel, that they're always going to be loved, and that even if they make mistakes, you're not going to abandon them. A lot of teens I work with have really severe abandonment issues, and the parents are very involved. It's not that they've ever done anything intentionally for the most part, but they don't understand what that is like, what are those attachment figures are like, and what it's like to be connected in their social spheres. So that's essentially an overview of the foundation I work from when I work with parents and teens. And then I meet separately with the parents to do some parent coaching and training. And then I work separately with the teens on helping them identify who they are, helping them to have more confidence and assertiveness. My top few rules when I work with parents that I encourage other therapists or coaches to adopt into their practice if it feels genuine for them. No fighting in front of the kids, and that includes even fighting behind closed doors in earshot. Children and teens are like sponges when it comes to their emotional health, and they can sense the tension. So it's not to say don't have conflict with your partner, of course, if you're the adult, but as much as your child or teen doesn't see it is the ideal. And if they do, making a visible repair attempt, an apology, a hug, mom and dad got in a fight, we're sorry you had to see that. It lets the child know, okay, my parents will still stay together after this. Because as the adult, if you make the repair privately, if the fight was public and you make the repair privately and your child or teen doesn't see that, they're left questioning. Even if it's not consciously, it's back in their mind, the questioning, they have that shaky ground that they don't really know, oh, are mom and dad okay? And that's not a fun spot for teens to be at when they're already trying to figure out who they are. If they're feeling unstable at home, It's going to throw everything off. So no fighting is the number one rule. And if you do, make the repair in public as best you can. Emotional regulation skills for parents. Children serve as a mirror for all of your unhealed things that you haven't worked through in your life. I'm a big proponent of healing transgenerational trauma. I recommend the book, It Didn't Start With You, and I can leave a link to that in our chat. It's a really transformational book for parents to understand some of why they do what they do isn't inherently coming from them. It's coming from previous generations of unhealed trauma that's working itself out through their DNA. It's a little bit more of a scientific approach that I take in the coaching practice, but parents usually respond very well to it because they feel like, oh, it didn't start with me. And then I hand them the book and they're like, wait, what? There's a whole book based off of it. So they really do appreciate that when I work with them, to know it's okay to feel triggered by your child and work on that and heal it, but it's not something that your child has to witness. They're not your friend. You're parenting them, whether it was intentional or unintentional parenting. It's important that we keep those loving and warm boundaries with our children, that we will be there for them, but by no means are we trying to befriend them. So that's when I work with parents. Those are my couple keys. And then when I work with teenagers, my main goal is to be their go-between. So I want to make sure that they feel seen, heard, and validated. I model everything that I would hope their parents would model. So even if they only get that while we work together each week, that works for me in the meantime, until the family system can reintegrate with the family work. And eventually I become obsolete. And if they need me, that's phenomenal and I will be there for them. But if they don't, that's also a great goal of mine when families and teens graduate and they get to know who they are. They get to know who they are within the family system. Their parents feel like there's less arguing and less fighting and less tears coming from both the parents and the teens. It's not easy work raising your entire family and then raising yourself at the same time. And I've noticed a lot of parents in different generations, even just a few generations prior, their inner work wasn't being done because it wasn't really known or talked about. We have such a gift right now in society to be able to go to therapy, to be able to go to counseling or coaching and not have it be stigmatized. But parents haven't grown up with that necessarily. So even reaching out for help for parenting and teen dynamics, I do get some calls where they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you that you need help. Everybody needs help. You are all the experts on your family. I'm the expert on this. Let's meet in the middle and teach me how best I can help apply my expertise to help you. So it's very much so a collaborative, horizontal relationship. I come at it from the conscious parenting approach, where children should have a say. They should have a say in their discipline. They should have a say in what they think fair consequences might be and fair discussions. So it helps them to learn how to make critical decisions rather than because I said so. What happens if you're not there and they make a decision that they didn't want to make, right? And then they don't have the reasoning skills of, oh, okay, I shouldn't make this decision because it's not the best thing. It doesn't lead me to my moral goals or my values or anything else, rather than I can't do this because my parents said so. It's not going to last from what I've seen. So I think it's very important that parents feel like they are being collaborated with, and that even if they say it, I've heard that before, and I'm sure other people who work with teens have too. I've said that to them 1,000 times. Honestly, sometimes just not being their parent is the magic ticket, and the teen being able to understand, oh, there are people out there who care about me, love me, and will validate me. I don't need to seek that from teenage relationships. I don't need to seek that from strangers on the internet. I can find that within myself. And then once I know who I am inside and I'm working on that, then I can fit in with my family more and start advocating for themselves. So the final thing that I will leave you with when it comes to the parent and teen dynamics, the exact thing that parents want from their children, which is to speak up for themselves, stand up for themselves, and have their own identity, is usually what they find difficulty with in the family dynamic, because parents are used to having more of that hierarchy and that vertical relationship of you'll do as I say, you ask the questions, I'm in charge. And when the teenage years hit, if we can move it more to a horizontal relationship, of course, with boundaries and respect, that's going to set your teen up for success as an adult, where they can make their own thought through critical decisions, as well as have a good relationship with you moving forward into their adult lives. So that's it. That's what I do in a nutshell.
That is incredible work. Oh my gosh. I don't know about you guys, and if you have questions, obviously jump in. But I jotted down so many things. So unmute yourselves, make comments. Let's talk with Talia.
I have to jump off, but that was wonderful. I wrote down like half the things you said. So I might have questions. I'm going to digest the information. I might have questions outside of this.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah. Bye, Nicole. Well, I have a question. I'll go ahead real quick. I know that you have very unique ways of working with your teen clients, and I'm wondering if you're open to sharing with those of us, what are the ways that you work with them that seems to really work that maybe traditional therapists or because you can do this in a coaching realm, because you can do it in therapy, like how is it different and why do you do it the way you do?
I do it the way I do it because I was the troubled teen who grew up in Orange County and nobody understood what that was like. And had I not had the therapist I had starting at, 12, I think is when I started, I wouldn't have known what the gift of just having somebody care for you once or twice a week, who, when you're fighting with your family, it's an escape. So I very much so embody the presence that she was for me, and I still will see her now occasionally, which is really cool to have that long-term relationship. She's psychodynamic in her base, and I'm that as well. I'm real with my teens. I don't follow the rules. I obviously follow the ethical and legal rules, but I don't follow the rules. I'll curse, I'll kick off my shoes, we'll talk. I will ask them things that most therapists won't because they're worried. And I don't view I view the parent and I as equals in terms of, I'm not parenting their child because they're not my child, but I will step in and do some things that most other therapists are like, ooh, I don't really want to tell the parent to or not to do this, and how do I do it? I take a very positive approach, but like Marlena was saying, like, I'm very direct. I always say it with love and I'm always respectful, but there's definitely times where I will call parents out of like, I'm going to say this is not ideal and here's why, because in 5 to 10 years your child's going to end up dating somebody like that. But like I will go into the depth with them and use almost like a Scared Straight approach, but not the A&E TV show. And the parents are like, oh, I never realized that. So that's why I take that transgenerational approach and include it. I'm like, I'm not telling you this because I don't think it's worthwhile or it's the best. I'm telling you this because it's been proven over years of research and history that like this is going to repeat itself if it doesn't get healed. And I make them feel empowered to do parenting in a different approach. And I'm like the go-between. Teens can text me in between sessions. Again, I have different guidelines that I can follow doing coaching, but to know that that kid actually, like, somebody gives a crap about them and does really care and will go to bat for them and be the voice when their parents aren't listening, that's, I think, 99% of why when I do my work with my teens, it works so well, because they know they're being empowered to be confident and assertive, and their parents learn to be like, oh, this is actually, like I said when I was ending, they want them to have the voice, but then you can't simultaneously encourage your kid to be confident and assertive, and when they do it towards you, shut it down. Like, it's not gonna, it's that they have to be like, oh, I need the emotional regulation, that I might be wrong as a parent. Like, admit your human side. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. And you can read all of the books on parenting and you have this life script built out for your kid, and then they do something off that and you're like, wait a second. And we're control freaks. I know a lot of parents are control freaks, like, oh, it has to be this way. That's a great script, right? It's ideal, but if your child doesn't follow the ideal, you still have to love them. So I'm more direct in my approach, and I'm okay if I say everything respectfully with love if somebody does not take it that well, because I'm willing to sit down and have those tough conversations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also loved one that you said, whether that was intentional parenting or unintentional parenting. Yes. I think it's like, ooh, I love that phrase.
Yeah, it makes them feel a lot better if they have an accidental pregnancy. They're like, oh, it wasn't intended, but you still got to do the work.
Well, I was just thinking of intentional, just like when you're just in a funk because you don't know how to regulate yourself. And it's like, that's still parenting. The job is huge and gigantic and unforgiving.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, you work with the kids and teens too. I know we've referred to people to each other. So it's nice to know that like there are other people out there who get that and can resonate. Like, parenting is definitely not an easy job. And there's so many sub jobs within that. They're a chauffeur, a chef, a therapist, like they're all of those roles. And so I forgot to add that in my presentation. I tell people, in order to be the best parent, it starts with being the best partner first. And even if you're just doing the co-parenting, it's still modeling. Every decision has to be for the best of the child as much as you can. It's not about what you feel towards your spouse. It's about the kids.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I want to talk about flooding. And so with access to technology, right? Because we're all in this place where we all use technology all the time. So I get that and I'm fine with it. My concern is the flooding of the information, of course, being quite filtered. So then the perception and the growth of my little's brains is seeing something that's not necessarily real. And then trying to still validate the importance of that lifeline. And yet at the same time, knowing that it is superficial or not helpful or building an idea or a perception of self that's completely unreasonable. And so it's this constant weird balance of allowing that access, understanding and validating, but at the same time knowing that it's also increasing anxiety. They don't have the same coping skills. They don't have the same impulse control. They don't know how to work out relationships because it's all this. And so it's this weird in between that it's like this daily gruel. So any tips on that would be fantastic. And if it involves wine, I support that.
What did I tell you, Robin, at the beginning of this? Yes, I would say the number one suggestion that I give when it comes to, we can't always regulate the digestion of the content, because even if they're at a friend's house or something, we don't have as much purview or control over it. But it's really leveling with the teen or the kid and asking them why it's important, right? So many times kids want to tell us what's going on, but we are in our adult or parent brain, we don't filter it the same way they do. They're excited and jazzed about everything. They have 10 to 13 years on earth. We have 30 to 40. Like it's getting down and reasoning with them on their level. Why is that important to you? What do you like about that Instagram post? It's making sure that they know that you're friendly with them and that you're interested and inquisitive. And that's going to open up the foundation when things maybe go awry or too much technology, or that we're seeing body image issues or anxiety concerns. The filter or the two-way conversation is already open because they know that you're actually interested in what they're interested in. And then you can take, I like to call them Jedi mind tricks. You can take the more parenting approach and see it, the conscious parenting, and go lining it up for them, what they've already told you, you mirror it back to them. I know you shared you like this because of this and this because of this, but it also sounds like it's causing some like anxiety, some worry. So you validate the emotional piece too. And it's like this joint decision that you make together to limit the technology based on what they've shared with you. These are pros and these are cons. And then you as the parent get to decide with them collaboratively. Right. So it's not, I'm taking your phone away, because then they're going to feel like they did something wrong, when in reality, they're not doing something wrong by having mixed emotions about seeing Instagram or social media. It's that adaptive, like adult in training approach for them to understand, yeah, actually, if I am feeling this way about social media or too much screen time or anything, it probably isn't the best thing for me to have it. So it's collaborating with them that they realize it. It's like, it's their idea. And then when they hear it, that it's their idea, they feel validated with it.
Yeah. Cause I get accused of therapizing. I don't know that that's a word. But when I start doing that, it's like, don't therapize me. And I'm like, and so then it's like, okay, here's some options. We can have this conversation, we can do these things, or we really do have to cut back because I need to understand the value, right? Because I really do need to understand the value, because
and give it a try, right? Anything you try with the techniques I give, if it doesn't work after a week, throw it away. I don't want you to keep trying to use a technique that just might not.
I'll call you.
Yeah, you'll call me. That's what I tell parents. Like, if it doesn't work, great. We only tried it for a week. Like, we're not going to waste any more time on it. They should have some buy-in. Teens and kids need to have some buy-in on why they're doing what they're doing. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. They're very reward-driven. Everybody's reward-driven. We all have 4 functions of behavior, which is a whole other presentation. But once you know that you can talk to your kid or your teen on that level, and then give them the option, right? We'll try it your way. And if not, it's the art of compromise.
Very nice. All right, sister.
Talia, I just have to say, really great presentation. I think something that I really enjoyed was your approach in having parents not fight in front of their kids, and if they do, having that repair work in front of them. I feel like I see that in a lot of my clients, where parents, they'll have conflict in front of their children, and then the way that they have conflict isn't really healthy. And then I see my clients modeling or repeating some of those behaviors with siblings and with peers at school. So I really enjoyed that when you touched on that, because I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm. And then thank you. I think it's the highlighting it for the parents of you, and they don't like hearing this, but I love saying it, like, you can't get upset at your child for doing what you're modeling for them. So if you yell at them to stop yelling, you're the problem. I obviously say it in a more loving way than that. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I do. And they're like, oh, like the double O moment. They're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And I've worked with parents who are like, well, I should be able to yell at them and they shouldn't yell back. And I'm like, so yes, in an ideal world, sure, but also no, because that's not healthy. So being able to tell the parent, like, whatever you do, they're going to repeat. So you are absolutely in control of what you do as a parent. You're human first. I get it. It's not like you have to be this robot person, but show them your human side. And this is another nugget, and I know we probably have to wrap up, but your relationship with your spouse or your co-parent is never a relationship your child will relate to. They'll never know what it's like to have that person as a husband, as this. They will only ever know what it's like to have that person as a parent. So it's not responsible of parents to be taking out their spouse, this relationship stuff in front of or on their kids, right? The splitting. Well, you're a dad. No, their dad actually never did that. Your husband did that. So time to clear it up and create the boundaries. And I'm very strict with the families I work with about that. Like, you're the husband or the co-wife or the co-parent. That's never a relationship your children will know. They will only ever know that person as mom or dad, no matter if you're together or not. And that helps clear a lot out for families of realizing, like, oh, this is my stuff, not my kid's stuff. Their dad did not do that. The person I chose to marry, and maybe I'm regretting, did that. Don't take it out on your kid.
Yes, I love that. Thank you.
Thank you for spending some of your time today with us at Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center. If you like what we're all about, please consider supporting our nonprofit organization by making a tax-deductible donation. To do this, you can go to our website at www.sagewellnessctr.org and click on Donate in the upper right-hand corner. We look forward to spending some time again with you real soon. Take good care.